Hi everybody, it's Kim from Patriot Garden, and today we're going to talk about saving seeds. There's a lot of reasons you may want to save seeds. For me, the reason why I want to save seeds is that every year I plant seeds that I grow, and I'm not purchasing seeds at the store. Now, that being said, I can't pass the seed rack without purchasing seeds, so it really doesn't actually work out financially for me. But there's a few things to know about plants and how you can save their seeds. First of all, there's 3 different ways that a plant saves its seeds from your vegetable garden. You can have a plant that goes bolt, and that means that it's going to produce a flower, and that flower is going to dry and give you your seeds for that plant for next year. The second way is in the fruit. So here you see a pumpkin and then a tomato. The seeds are inside the fruit. And then the third way is some sort of a seed inside a pod, like the pods from a radish plant or beans. Now, the best way to save the seeds from the pods and the flowers is to let them dry naturally on the plant. When it comes to the fruit, it's helpful to let it get as ripe as it's going to get on the vine. You don't want it to get overripe and mushy, but you certainly want it to come to maturity before you open it up and save the seeds. Now, before we talk about the various methods for saving seeds and how you store them, let's talk about whether or not you're going to grow the same plant you saved the seeds from. Now, I'm not going to give you a huge tutorial on hybrids, but I'm going to just give you a little bit of vocabulary. The difference between hybrids, stabilized hybrids, and heirlooms are basically just the generations from the new cross. So for instance, an F1 hybrid is the first generation of a cross between 2 different kinds of plants. You probably have a hybrid or a stabilized hybrid. Those hybrids can be labeled F2, F3, open pollinated, which means it has been replicated so many times to produce the same plant each time, so that hybrid is now called stabilized. An heirloom would have to be a stabilized hybrid for at least 50 years. So what that means for you as a gardener is if you have an unstabilized hybrid and you attempt to save the seeds, there's a chance that either those seeds are sterile, which I've never come across, or those seeds will not produce a copy of the parent plant. So for instance, if you grow sun gold tomatoes, which I have right here, sun gold tomatoes are a non-stabilized hybrid right now. So if you save the seeds from a sun gold and you attempt to plant them, you may or may not get something that looks like a sun gold. Now, I happen to have a lot of volunteer sun golds in my garden this year, and they grew up to be sun gold tomatoes. So I guess I just lucked out, or we're getting pretty far along in the generations so that that variety of tomato is becoming stabilized. Now, is all this important to you as a home gardener? For me, it's not. I'm just interested in growing food. So I'm going to grow those hybrid, stabilized, non-stabilized seeds, and I'm going to take what I get and hope that it tastes good. Now, you don't need a whole lot of equipment to save seeds. What I have is obviously my seed sources. I have some clean water right from my tap because we have a well. If you don't have a well and you're using city water for the fermentation of the wet seeds, like from tomatoes or cucumbers, you might want to use bottled water instead. I have some covers and some jars for those wet seeds to ferment, paper plates for seeds to dry on, a way to mark my plates so I know what I'm saving, a strainer for cleaning off seeds, and I'm using these coin envelopes to store the dry seeds. They won't go in here until they are completely dried, and then from there they'll go into a nice, cool, dark place. And of course, a knife to cut open your vegetables. Now I'm just going to try to separate the seeds from the membrane as much as I can. Okay, so these seeds have been rinsed. The rest of the membrane has been taken away. I also patted them dry to give them a little head start. If they're too wet, I found on a paper plate, they might stick to the paper plate when they dry. And we don't want any bits of paper to be saved. So I'm just going to spread those out as much as I can. And any last bits of membrane I can pull out, or I can wait till they're dry. And then the last thing will be to mark what this is. Now these are just a small sugar pumpkin. They're really delicious. And we try to save a lot of this for winter. Save and separate are a beautiful purple zinnia. Now I also have these zinnias as well. They were kind of casualties of the last really big rainstorm. And as you can see, they're not quite dry enough to harvest those seeds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave the blossoms there. And these seeds are a bit wet right now because they've been rained on, but the seeds had totally dried before. So I can just kind of separate them and lay them out and get them to dry. Now these were a Benares lilac zinnia. One of my favorites. Very prolific and a beautiful flower. This is a Danvers carrot flower. It was really beautiful when it was alive, but now that it's been completely dried out, and again, it did rain this morning, so it's a little bit wet. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out the seeds, and I know I'm getting a lot of garbage along with those seeds, but I can separate that later and just shake that flower out and get all those carrot seeds out. Remember to leave your flowers till they're completely dry. And any carrots that you are planting this year, you can leave in the ground till next year, because a carrot is biennial, which means this flower will not appear till the second year of the carrot's life. You're not going to get a flower with seeds on any carrot that you planted this year. But make sure you leave a couple in the ground, especially if you like the variety that you grew. And then once these are clean, I can go in and pick out all of the garbage. And as you can see, there's a couple little bugs in there too. You always run the risk of bringing some bugs in if you're not careful. Then of course we're going to mark these. These were Danvers. And those are all set. Now the next seeds that we're going to save are from an alpine radish, a completely white radish. And we did actually harvest a lot of these pods to eat. They're really delicious. They taste just like a radish. So even after your radishes have been harvested, if you leave one in the ground, it will grow beautiful flowers, and it'll grow an abundance of these pods, which you can either eat or save a few to dry on the plant. Do not take them off until they've dried naturally on the plant. And then basically all you do is remove the seeds. It's as simple as that. This is also what kale seeds will look like, except they'll be black. But kale will grow a flower in the first year. These aren't biennial like carrots. That flower will grow in the first year. And then all you do is let the pods dry and pull out your kale seeds. And red Russian kale is one of my favorites, so I plan to save a lot of those seeds. Now the next seeds that we're going to do are seeds called wet seeds. These are seeds that are encased in a gel, like tomato seeds. That gel is a protective gel, but it needs to be fermented off to separate it from the seeds. So basically all I'm going to do is squeeze this tomato. Get all the seeds squeezed into the jar. I don't want that center membrane. I really just want the seeds. This is Aroma VF Paste Tomato, and I really like this tomato. So we are going to save these seeds. There's actually not a lot of seeds in a paste tomato, which is why they are paste tomatoes, because they're very meaty. The next one is this Sun Gold, which I was lucky to have replicate as a volunteer. So this is a fruit from my volunteer plant. And again, we're just going to squeeze the seeds with the gel into the jar. Pretty simple. A little bit more seed matter in this one. Then we'll take care of this. And we have one more of those Sun Gold. Get that little bundle of gelatinous seeds into the jar. Now basically what you're going to do with your wet seeds is a 3 to 4 day fermentation process where the seeds will sink to the bottom, the gel will be taken off, and it will float to the top. And you'll be able to easily use a very small strainer to strain the gel from the seeds and end up with just clean seeds. And at that point you will put them on a paper plate and dry them just like you're drying everything else. And then lastly, a Wisconsin pickling cucumber. I really like this variety. They are tasty and they're quick growing and they're awesome for pickling. Soon there'll be a pickling video out with a new method called a pasteurization pickle, where you don't actually boil them in a hot water bath, but you do let them sit at 180 degrees for 30 minutes, and it's supposed to ensure a crisper pickle. We're trying that with our Wisconsin pickling cucumbers. Now, we may not get a ton of seeds out of that. I think that's more pulp than seed, but that's all right. The fermentation process is going to help. Now, the next thing we're going to do is simply add our clean water. And as I said before, this is my well water. If you have city water, you might want to use bottled or distilled water for this purpose. Put a little bit more in the cucumbers. Now basically that's it. It's going to sit for about 3 to 4 days. It'll get a little cloudy. I'm not covering this for any other reason than to have something to write on. And then I'm going to cut a hole because if it's fermenting, the gases are going to want to escape. And before we go, I just want to show you some of the red Russian kale seeds that I saved from the flower of my first spring crop. They're real tiny black seeds, but they stay nice and dry in these envelopes. Again, these are coin envelopes. You can buy any paper envelopes. Make sure you mark the date so that you know when they went in the envelopes. And then once they are sealed, you want to leave them in a dark, dry, cool place. Some people keep their seeds in the refrigerator. That's an option too. I know some people who advocate freezing seeds. I've never frozen my seeds, and I don't even keep them in the refrigerator, and I get really good germination rates. So you'll want to experiment with that and see what's best for you. The last thing I'll do for my seed saving process is daily I will come and shake the plate. Nothing's moving today because the seeds are still very wet, but as they dry, I will come around and shake the plate occasionally so the seeds don't stick to the plate. I'll do the same thing with my flower seeds, and once these dry completely, I will pull them out as well. With my carrot seeds, they're looking pretty good right now, but I'm going to keep shaking them. And my radish seeds are looking pretty loose, and then we'll check these in about 3 to 4 days, strain them, and then put them out on paper plates for drying as well. So there you go. There's really no rocket science to this. So go save those seeds, ensure your food security for another year, and happy gardening, everybody.